Silver Dagger. The people of this proud land have had the misfortune of enduring a long history of wars, invasions, and civil strife. This is just one tale from long ago, deep into the dark past of this dim land. A young man is traveling to find out what had become of his betrothed. You see, though his family and hers had planned for a grand wedding, war had swept over the land, keeping the two families apart for 2 years. As the young man is traveling to his fiancée's hometown, he comes across a refugee in the mountains. The refugee is an old man with ragged clothing, cuts and bruises on his face, and he bears a hunched back. The old man staggers as he clumsily makes his way through the region. The young man approaches and asks the old man if a certain village is nearby. The village would be the village of his fiancée. The old man tells him that the village was down the mountain and across the wetlands below. But, the old man warned, there would be so many bad things to see if the young man went that way. What do you mean? Do you speak of monsters, old man?
Do you know what the scariest thing is, young man? You think you know, but you don't. You probably think of monsters or dragons or ghosts, but it's not. The scariest thing is people. The young man avoids the topic and continues. Well, how far is it to that village down there then? The old man informs him that it's all been invaded, burned to ash. Nothing left but dead bodies, fires, ruins, people eating the bodies of the dead. The young man screws up his courage and asks, and what of you, old man? I am like the other refugees. We run blind and helpless, like ants under a farmer's plow. We're like dry leaves in the fall, scattered everywhere.
The young man is taken aback, speechless at all the old man has said. After some moments, the old man turns away and looks over the valley below. Ah, this war. What a waste. Then, turning to the young man, he adds, if this war wasn't going on, you could be doing much better. I must go down there. My betrothed lives there.
Then you have to be careful. You could meet anything,
even if it's something you would normally trust. The young man takes his leave of the old man and makes his way down the mountain. At nightfall, he crosses the wetlands, where the water is sometimes ankle deep, while at other times it rises up to his knees. In this way, he makes his way slowly, slogging through thick, tall grass and fallen tree limbs and general underbrush. At one point, late in the evening, he stumbles, almost falling into the murky water. However, he reaches out for stability to a nearby branch, only to discover that the branch is actually a skeleton's arm, clothing still hanging on it in shreds. The young man screams and falls backwards into a bush. Oh, the horror in his eyes when he then realizes that this too is nothing but the remains of yet another corpse, another casualty of the war. He stands and moves as fast as his legs will carry him, splashing filth upon filth around him as he darts his eyes from one dark shape to another, his screams ceasing as he gasps for air. Some time later, we find the young man walking slowly, his energy spent, tired, wet, smelling of death, and quietly, resolutely staggering along the ridge of the wetlands, his mind numb to all about him, save for the glimmer of recognition that this familiar tree line must lead him eventually to the village of his betrothed's family. Finding a dirt road, he climbs it for a while, only to find two women standing together at the top of a rise. They seem to be staring off into the black night, and one of them, a servant perhaps, holds aloft a lantern. The young man thinks to hide behind a tree, but it is too late. The women have spotted him. "Who are you, and what do you want?" one asks. Stepping from behind the tree, the young man says, I'm sorry to bother you, but you both stand in my path. And by the way, what are two girls doing out on such a dark night?" "We are waiting for someone to guide us safely home. Could you do that for us?" After some hesitation, he answers, "I will." He then straightens his clothing and tries to be more presentable. "Which way is your home?" he asks. The village they mention is the same as the one he is heading toward, and he tells them this. I'm going that way myself." And thus they make their way together. Once the young man escorts the women to their home, he says goodbye and turns to walk away. However, he then thinks to ask them if they know which house belongs to such and such family. Surprised, the girl tells him that they are a part of that very family. The young man is relieved. "Oh," he says to them, coming a bit closer, "then it is your family that I seek." He then realizes, as does the girl, that they are in fact the very two betrothed lovers to be married. The women guide the young man inside the compound, but the young man is soon saddened to find that the two girls are the only survivors. After some moments in silence, the two women take him inside and serve him water, for this is all they have to offer him. The young man tells them that he must go on to another location in a few days, not knowing when he might come back to his betrothed. She boldly asks him to marry her that night then, so that, should she die, she could go on to become his house ghost and look after him from beyond. The young man consents, and the three of them go outside to perform the marriage ceremony, with the servant girl as the sole witness. After the ceremony, the couple go inside a room that is to be their humble bridal suite. The woman removes her hair ornament, a long wooden pin, and she tells him that she used to have one that was far better, from her mother's mother, one with bits of ivory and tortoise shell, decorated with gemstones, pearls, and even gold. But it was sold to keep them living while she waited for him to arrive. The bride also regrets that they have no ceremonial wine to drink for their nuptials, so she takes from her clothing the last item of any worth, a small silver dagger worn for protection. She asks the servant girl to go and buy some drink with it. The servant leaves and soon returns with some rice wine, and then waits outside. The bride pours her husband some rice wine in their bowl, for they have no cups, and then the husband does the same for his wife. Trying to make the most of a sad mood, The husband jokes to the servant girl outside that she ought to poke holes in the thin paper walls, as is customary. The villagers would poke holes to try and witness the conjugal bonding of a married couple on their wedding night. This would act as proof of their legitimacy when a child is later born. The servant girl makes a few holes, but then turns her head away and cries in sorrow at this whole sad situation. In the morning, the man awakes, feeling happy in some small way that even though his life had been full of sorrow, and the road that lay ahead of him would be full of tears, at least at this moment he could find some bliss, some joy in an otherwise bleak life. Thinking thusly, the man rolls over to embrace his beloved. He smiles upon seeing her hair and at the simple wooden hairpin. But then, as he rolls her over to face him, he is shocked to find, indeed, only a skeleton in his wedding bed. Shocked, he bursts from the room and into the daylight, where he finds, leaning against a nearby support beam, another skeleton, whose clothing matches that of the servant girl. Overcome with horror, the young man runs pell-mell out from the compound and down the road. Soon, out of breath and exhausted, he comes to a roadside inn, a kind of traditional food and lodging place. Upon hearing the man's approach and his commotion outside, the couple who run the inn come out to see what is the matter. The husband tries to calm the young man down and helps him to take a seat at an outside table. There, after catching his breath somewhat, the man asks the couple what had happened to the family down the road, to their household. The husband tells him that the family all died because of the war. The wife then adds that the poor daughter stayed behind with her servant. She was waiting for her fiancé to come, but he never came, and she died. They were to have a grand marriage, but not now. The young man is dizzy, and bewildered, he asks the woman for a drink. The husband sits across from the man while his wife goes over to a box-like container covered with boards and held down by a rock. Placing the rock and boards to one side, the wife asks the husband, "Dear, did you remove the drinking vessel from in here?" "No, dear, of course not. You and I were together all night. And there's no one else here." "Well, someone took our rice wine. And look here, in the bottom of the container. What's this doing here?" The young man turns his head slowly to the wife as she holds up a small silvery object. The young man begins wavering back and forth and to and fro, the world spinning madly about him, for he knows exactly what the thing must be: the silver dagger from his beloved.